Welcome back to the DragonCruiser, where we dive into the tech shaping our world. Today we're tackling a huge question. When physics slows the chip race, can China surge ahead? The global semiconductor race is hitting a wall at 2 nanometers, where physics is throwing up roadblocks. Could this slowdown be China's big shot to catch up with chip giants like TSMC and Intel? We're breaking down the tech, the geopolitics, and how China's manufacturing hustle might change the game. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's cruise into it. All right, let's set the scene. Semiconductors are the brains of your phone, your laptop, your car, heck, even your smart fridge. These tiny chips are packed with transistors, and for decades we've followed Moore's law. Every 2 years we double the number of transistors, making chips smaller, faster, and more powerful. But now in 2025, we're hitting a wall at 2 nanometers, or 2 nanometers. Why? 2 words: physics and money. Right now, the big dogs, TSMC, Samsung, Intel, are rolling out 2 nanometer chips. TSMC's N2 process, launching this year, crams about 330 million transistors into a square millimeter. That's wild. These chips power the latest tech like Apple's M5 or Nvidia's next-gen GPUs. But going smaller, say 1.4 nanometer, is a whole different beast. First, physics. At 2 nanometer, transistors are so tiny that electrons start tunneling through barriers like water leaking through a sieve. That messes up performance. Second, cost. Building a 2 nanometer factory costs $20 to $30 billion, and each silicon wafer runs 20 to 30 grand. Sub 2 nanometer? Try 50 billion for a fab and 50 grand a wafer. That's a tough pitch, even for tech giants. So, the industry's looking at a slowdown in density increases around 2030 to 2040. Instead of doubling transistors every 2 years, we might get just 10 to 15% more per generation. That's the 2 nanometer stagnation window, and it's where China could make a move. Let's talk about China's place in this race. If you've been following the news, you know they're playing catch-up. The US, Netherlands, and Japan have slapped tight export controls on the tech needed for cutting-edge chips, especially extreme ultraviolet, or EUV, machines from ASML. These bad boys are like laser scalpels, etching patterns with 1.1 nanometer precision for 3 nanometers and 2 nanometer chips. China? They don't have EUV. They're stuck with older deep ultraviolet, or DUV, machines. Think crayons instead of a fine-tip pen. China's top chipmaker, SMIC, is making 7 nanometer chips like the ones in Huawei's Mate 60 Pro, using DUV with a trick called multiple patterning. It's like layering paint to get a sharper image, but it's slow, pricey, and only yields 30 to 50% good chips compared to TSMC's 70 to 90%. SMIC's reportedly pushing for 5 nanometer and even 3 nanometer, but it's a slog. Their costs are 40 to 50% higher, and they're relying on DUV gear stockpiled before sanctions tightened. China's own DUV machines, made by SMIC, can handle 28 nanometers, maybe 14 nanometers, but their 8 nanometer overlay precision is way behind ASML's 1.1 nanometers. That's a 10 to 15 year gap. You might have seen hype about China hitting 3 nanometer or even 2 nanometer with DUV. Hold up, those claims are shaky with no solid proof. Analysts like TrendForce say China's stuck at 7 nanometer for high volume production, and 3 nanometer is a stretch without EUV. But here's the thing, that 2 nanometer stagnation window could be China's chance to close the gap. So, why does a slowdown at 2 nanometer help China? It's all about their superpower, taking tech from 1 to 100. The US is awesome at 0 to 1, big disruptive breakthroughs like EUV or quantum computing. Think MIT, Intel, or DARPA. China, though? They're the kings of scaling and optimizing. Look at their 5G networks or EV batteries. They take existing tech and make it cheaper, faster, and massive. That's their 1/100 magic, and a 2 nanometer slowdown plays right into it. Here's how it works. Around 2030, as the world hits 1.4 nanometers or 1 nanometer, scaling gets brutal. Transistors can't shrink much past 1 nanometer. Silicon atoms are 0.2 nanometers apart, and quantum tunneling makes things messy. Plus, fabs are getting crazy expensive, and the performance boost from shrinking drops to 10 to 15%. TSMC's A14, around 1.4 nanometers, is planned for 2029. But after that, density gains might crawl for a decade, until 2040. That's China's window. China can seize this moment in 3 big ways. First, optimizing DUV. China's SMIC and SME are milking DUV for all it's worth. By tweaking multiple patterning, SMIC could hit 5 nanometer by 2028, with 60–70% yields, making chips for Huawei or local AI firms. SMIC's SS800DV machine hits 65nm resolution, and they're working on light sources like RS Laser's 100-watt solid-state laser. These won't rival ASML's EUV, but during a slowdown, they're good enough for 7nm to 5nm, especially for China's huge market. Second, chiplets and 3D stacking. The industry's moving from shrinking chips to stacking them, like building a skyscraper instead of a bigger house. Chiplets combine smaller chips, say 7nm ones, into a package that performs like 2nm. AMD's Ryzen CPUs do this, and China's on the train. Huawei and JSET are scaling chiplet tech, which could let China match 2nm performance by 2030 without EUV. It's a perfect fit for their manufacturing strengths. Third, 2D materials. These are the future. Materials like molybdenum disulfide, 1 atom thick, that can replace silicon for sub-1nm chips. The US and TSMC are ahead, targeting 2D materials in 1.4nm nodes by 2028-2032. But China's not slacking. The Chinese Academy of Sciences and Huawei are cranking out patents on MOS2 transistors, aiming for prototypes by 2030. If they scale this by 2035, China could hit 1nm equivalent chips, cutting the gap to 3 to 5 years behind TSMC. This 2030-2040 window is where China's 1/100 hustle kicks in. They've got the cash, $150 billion invested since 2015, maybe $300 billion by 2030. They've got the market, 40% of global chip demand, and they've got the drive with Huawei, SMIC, and others pushing hard. Physics might just be on China's side this time. But let's not get too hyped. It's not a free ride. China's got some big hurdles to jump. First, the tech gap. China's DUV tech is 10 to 15 years behind ASML's EUV. SMIC's machines have 8nm overlay precision. ASML's hit 1.1nm. That's a problem for high-yield 2nm or 1nm chips. China's yields are 30–50%, meaning half their chips are duds, while TSMC's at 70–90%. Closing that gap takes serious time, even with a slowdown. Second, sanctions. The US, Netherlands, and Japan keep tightening the noose. Since 2023, they've blocked advanced DUV machines, software updates, even cloud access to design tools. China's stockpiled some gear, but it's finite, and smuggling's getting tougher. They've poached talent like SMIC's co-CEO, a former TSMC exec, but US rules now block American engineers from helping. That's a hit. Third, competition. TSMC, Intel, and Samsung aren't chilling. They're diving into chiplets, 3D stacking, and new tech like neuromorphic and photonic computing. By 2035, TSMC's 3D stacked chips could deliver 5x the density of 2nm without shrinking nodes. The US is also pushing 0-1 breakthroughs. Think Intel's neuromorphic chips or IBM's quantum systems. China's strong in neuromorphic and photonics, but quantum's a weak spot, trailing by 3 to 5 years. Geopolitics is a wild card. China controls 90% of rare earths like gallium used in chips and hit back with export bans in 2024. That could secure materials like photoresist from Japan. But if tensions spike, the US could crank up sanctions, cutting off more supplies. It's a high-stakes chess match. So what's the future look like? Here's my take. From 2025 to 2030, TSMC and the West dominate with 2nm and 1.4nm chips, using high-NA EUV and 2D materials. China sticks to 7nm, 5nm, building chiplets to compete in AI and smartphones. By 2030 to 2035, the 2nm stagnation hits. Density gains slow to 10% per generation. That's China's moment. They could hit 2nm equivalent performance with chiplets and maybe 1nm with 2D materials by 2035, shrinking the gap to 3–5 years behind TSMC. By 2040, the game shifts. New tech, neuromorphic, photonic, maybe quantum, takes over. China's already strong in neuromorphic and photonics, with Huawei and Tsinghua pushing hard. If they keep pouring in billions, $300 billion by 2030, they could match the West in markets like AI chips or data centers. Catching up fully? That needs an EUV-like breakthrough, maybe with Tsinghua's particle accelerator tech by 2035. The big picture: physics is slowing the chip race at 2nm, giving China a decade to flex its 1/100 strengths. Scaling, optimizing, manufacturing. They won't lead, but they could go from a 10-year lag to a 3-year lag by 2040. That's a game changer. All right, DragonCruisers, that's the chip race showdown. Will physics give China the edge to catch up at 2 nanometer? Or will sanctions and US innovation keep them trailing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think China's got the hustle, or is the gap too big? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for more tech deep dives. Until next time, keep cruising.